Hey, CFMA, Stephan King here. Ever wondered how to calculate your gross profit for tax purposes from your WIP schedule? We're going to do that today. So we're going to start with our WIP schedule from our financial statements. And then we're going to make some tax adjustments to that schedule. The first tax adjustment we're going to make is we're going to take the WIP from exempt contracts from the prior period. We're going to add that back. And then we're going to add back the WIP from residential contracts, which we are able to report at a 70-30 split, 70% in the prior period, 30% in the following period. Then we're going to add back the jobs that were less than 10% complete in the prior period. So that's going to be our first set of adjustments. Then we're going to subtract out from our current WIP schedule any exempt contracts that are not required to be reported in the current period. We're going to subtract out the 30% of those contracts or residential contracts that we get to defer until next period. And then we're going to also subtract out the 10% completed job, less than 10% completed jobs for the current period. So let's do some little mathematical calculations here real quick. We're going to take and add back, if you will, the contracts that we had at the beginning of the period. We had contract revenue from exempt contracts of $150,000. We had WIP from residential contracts of $100,000, and we had WIP of $50,000 for contracts that hadn't been more than 10% complete. We're going to add back the costs associated with those contracts, and we're going to subtract out those amounts. And so that the additions for the current period will be $100,000 for those contracts with they were exempt the prior period, $30,000 for those contracts that had a partial exemption because they were residential contracts. And then we're going to subtract out $50,000 of revenue associated with the contracts that were less than 10% completed. Now we're going to subtract out, if you will, all the items that are similar to the ones we added back for the prior period for the current period. We're going to subtract out $50,000 from the end of the year WIP schedule for exempt contracts. We're going to subtract out $75,000 of revenue, if you will, from those contracts that are residential. And then we're going to subtract out $30,000 for contracts less than 10% complete. Now let's add the costs associated with those contracts as well, so we can figure out exactly where we are on those items. So we're going to subtract out from those the gross contract to figure out the gross profit of $25,000 on contracts exempt, $50,000 on residential contracts, so that at the end of the day, our adjustment to our WIP financial statement WIP is going to be $100,000. So our gross profit for income tax purposes is $250,000. That's the hack. Hopefully you found this helpful.